Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I am Blake Burman. All right, look at this. What we have here in this town tonight. A live look just down the road from us, Washington, D.C. President Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, expected any moment now to be a part of the national Christmas tree lighting. This dates all the way back to 1923. Calvin Coolidge, the first one to do it way back then, and we've been doing it for more than 100 years since then. When that happens, those images always beautiful. We will show it to you live tonight here on the Hill. Also this evening, the Admiral's defense. The man who oversees the deadly drug boat strikes in the Caribbean, heading today to Capitol Hill.
Strikes on September 2nd, which were righteous strikes.
I think it'd be hard to watch this series of videos and not be troubled by it.
In moments, we are joined by a key leader who watched the most controversial videos. He's going to tell us what he saw. Plus, a 4-year mystery solved. Pipe bombs in the nation's capital. How the FBI says they were finally able to track down a once totally unidentified man. That guy right there. Also this evening, it just happened again. Weeks after a woman was set on fire, now a disabled man pushed onto train tracks. The Chicago's mayor still believes this is isolated. And how about this for a question? What is culturally normal? The California governor, Gavin Newsom's message for Democrats tonight. But first this evening, the Admiral on the Hill. You know, for most of America, he was relatively unknown just a few days ago, until the Secretary of War revealed that Admiral Frank Bradley oversaw the multiple strikes on a suspected drug boat. Today, lawmakers heard from the Admiral himself as he briefed some of the most important committees in Congress as to what he saw, what happened, why he did it. All it comes amid the backdrop of a major decision as well from the Commander-in-Chief, potentially involving U.S. forces and Venezuela. In a moment, we'll speak with one of the congressmen who was briefed by the Admiral. Adam Smith is the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. But first, out to our Joe Khalil live up on Capitol Hill with the details of what he said behind closed doors. Joe?
Hey, Blake, and it's important to remember that senators and lawmakers, not only did they get a briefing from Admiral Bradley, but they also saw the video from that September 2nd double strike when it happened. So they came away from that with two very different assessments based on whether you're talking to a Republican or a Democrat, it seemed like. No one disagreed on the facts of what happened. There was a second strike on 2 survivors that killed them. But what they disagreed on was whether those 2 men were either in a position to become a threat to military personnel there, or whether they were sort of helpless and defenseless and could have been apprehended rather than being killed. That is where the difference is, Blake. Take a listen to both Senators Tom Cotton and Mark Warner, the top Democrat and Republican on these Senate Intelligence Committees. Again, different assessments here.
Video was very disturbing, and I think Congress needs to see it. I think as well that the legal opinion underlying this whole policy actions, frankly, needs to be released publicly.
If you think these strikes are justified and righteous, as I do, and I want them to continue, then of course the second strike, when you have 2 survivors who are trying to flip their boat back over and continue on their mission, remain in the battle.
Blake, we know that there were subsequent strikes after that where there were survivors that were not killed but were apprehended, so different scenario than the strike that we are now talking about. We also found out that Admiral Bradley told lawmakers there was no kill everyone order from Secretary Hegseth, as was previously reported. There are now calls, Blake, for the Department of War to publicly release this video.
Our Joe Khalil, live tonight up on Capitol Hill. Joe, thank you. Joining us now, the Democratic congressman from Washington State, Adam Smith, back with us once again. As you might know, he is the ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Always appreciate your perspective. I want to start with your colleague, Jim Himes, who's the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. And he said today that Admiral Bradley did the right thing and has his respect. After hearing what you heard today, do you feel the same way?
Oh, I don't think that's what Jim Himes said. We put out a joint statement, and Jim wants this further investigated. He never said he did the right thing. He has a lot of respect for Admiral Bradley. He honors the fact that he came up, testified before us. But Jim Himes has not concluded that he did the right thing. So that's not accurate.
Yeah, I believe
we really need to paint the
he told that
picture
to one of our reporters, but I'll double back with you on that.
I sent out a joint statement with him, and Jim Himes has not. In fact, I just saw him 45 minutes ago in the gym, as a matter of fact. He has not sent out a statement saying that Admiral Bradley did the right thing. That is not accurate. But as to what actually happened, we saw the video, and the most disturbing thing about what Senator Cotton just said is this notion that they were trying to flip the boat back over and get back into the fight. Based on the video, that's patently ridiculous. And Admiral Bradley even said in the briefing that he had concluded that there was no way that that boat was being right-sized. They were standing or leaning on the bow of the boat, which was the only part of the boat that was still sticking out of the water, and it was capsized. There was no way they were flipping that back over and going anywhere. The boat was totally disabled and floating in the current. The argument that the Admiral made is that they couldn't tell if the drugs were destroyed. And look, the first strike set the boat on fire, flipped it over. Like I said, only the bow sticking up. There's no way to tell that there were any drugs left there, and quite a few reasons to conclude that there weren't. But that was the basis for the strike. Not that they were trying to right-size the boat and go on their merry way. That wasn't happening. It was, I suppose, arguably possible that someone could come to assist them, but we had eyes on the scene and nobody was. So they weren't trying to flip the boat back over and get into the fight. They were simply sitting on the boat trying to survive. So I don't agree with that characterization. Right. Cotton is right. The real issue here is the orders around the whole mission.
When you talk about the mission in general, here the number of strikes on suspected boats, there hasn't been a strike since November 17th. We could show our audience here the calendar. There was basically one almost every other day in October, many in November, and none since November 10th, or November 15th, excuse me. The Secretary of War, Congressman Pete Hegseth, said this the other day in the cabinet room, and then I want to pick it up with you on the other side.
We've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean. We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now, which is the entire point.
He says it's the entire point. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. No. In fact, he wouldn't agree with that if he thought about it for 2 seconds. The entire point, I guess, is to try to stop drugs from coming into the United States or severely restrict their flow. There's no evidence at this point that the flow has been severely restricted. And again, remember, we're talking about cocaine here. Fentanyl is the primary killer in America. That is what people are overdosing on, and this entire operation has nothing to do with fentanyl. And the conclusion here, and it's really important, that the only reason that this strike has the veneer of possibly being legal is the argument that these two were trying to get back into, quote, the fight, end quote. When you're in a normal combat situation, you have to think about, okay, I've wounded this person, they appear to say, but could they possibly still get up and shoot at me? These two weren't shooting at anybody. They were deemed to be possibly getting back into the fight by the possibility that the cocaine was still there in the bottom of the boat, and they might find some other way to transmit it, and also not to the United States. They had no idea where this cocaine was going. So it's really attenuated to say that they were back in the fight or directly related to the drug problem we have in the U.S.
As I mentioned, you were a part of the briefing there with the Admiral. This is one part of a very big and complicated story, because when you project forward, there's the decision from the Commander-in-Chief potentially coming, Congressman Smith, on what to do with potential strikes inside Venezuela. Did you get a sense from the Admiral about what might be coming next?
That did not come up, and that is also part of the problem here. This mission has been presented as really focused on drugs. Got to stop drugs coming in. Well, problem number one is at the same time that's going on, President Trump is pardoning massive drug dealers. The former president of Honduras, who was convicted in U.S. courts of trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine in the U.S., he's going to pardon him. He also pardoned Ross Ulbricht from the Silk Road, who was using crypto and secure lines on the internet to launder money for billions of dollars in drugs. He pardoned both of them. And then second, he has talked, the president has talked a lot about wanting to get rid of Maduro in Venezuela. So is this about drugs or is this about regime change? And none of it has been authorized by Congress.
We've covered all this, but let me leave our audience with this, because you are the ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee. You've got a big job and a wide perch up there, Congressman. What do you think happens next in Venezuela?
It's really hard to say. I don't know what the president's going to do. I'll tell you, there is no way on earth we should be going to war or trying to do regime change in Venezuela. We should be out of the regime change business. I'm not a fan of Maduro, but the idea that all you got to do is remove someone and something better automatically comes in its place, I would trust that Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, a whole lot of places would have taught us that lesson by now, and that we would be out of the regime change business.
There's the possibility, speaking of other nations, that Maduro maybe ends up at a safe haven. Cuba, Turkey, China, and Russia, just some of the potential options if that happens. Adam Smith, once again, Democrat Washington ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, Congressman. We'll catch up with you again soon. Meantime, President Trump touting himself today as the peacemaker in chief. The president bringing together the leaders of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda here in Washington, where they signed a U.S. brokered agreement aimed at ending decades of violence in eastern Congo.
I have a lot of confidence in both leaders. We'll keep these commitments. I know they're going to keep them and follow through on the agreement and create a much brighter future for the people of their countries.
The deal also opens the region's critical mineral reserves to American companies, giving the U.S. new access to rare earth minerals and potentially shifting competition with China, although critics warn that peace in the region remains fragile. Still to come tonight, over the next 48 minutes or so, a repeat offender strikes again. A man arrested for pushing an intellectually disabled man onto train tracks in Chicago. And you won't believe how many arrests are on his rap sheet. Again, plus this.
An individual who is now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested.
Nearly 5 years later, officers cracked the case in the D.C. pipe bomb investigation. But has this crime been solvable the whole time? And the clock is running out for millions of Americans facing higher health care premiums. Why the only doctor... Another week and another horrific crime on Chicago's train system by yet another serial criminal. On Monday, a man with more than 40 previous arrests allegedly punched and pushed an intellectually disabled man onto the train tracks, all over $1. It's the second such incident in just a couple weeks. Just last month, as you might know, a woman was set on fire on a Chicago train by a suspect that had a history of more than 70 arrests. At the time, the mayor said, you know what, this is all isolated. Here we are again. Ben Bradley, WGN's investigative reporter, one of the best in the business, with us tonight here on News Nation. I mean, I heard from the mayor, Ben, that a couple weeks ago it was all isolated. And here we are again.
Yeah, Blake, the mayor, progressive mayor here in Chicago, even acknowledged that the criminal justice system has failed here. In the most recent case, this guy not only had 41 arrests, but 7 felony convictions, things like robbery, unlawful use of a weapon. He was actually awaiting trial on a new charge of criminal damage to property. He was on pretrial release when this latest crime is said to have happened. A strikingly similar situation to what we saw last month here in Chicago with that young woman set on fire on a CTA train. A lot of people talking about cash bail. The reality is the bulk of these cases occurred before Illinois changed its law. The other thing we see here in Chicago, Blake, is that people want to talk about, oh, is this because of Illinois' Safety Act or cash bail? The reality is, in these cases, judges do have discretion. Judges could have ordered these men remain locked up. In at least one of the cases, prosecutors asked a judge to do it, and the judge said no.
The mayor there is Brandon Johnson. After that woman was set on fire a few weeks ago, Ben, the mayor said this.
This is an isolated incident. As devastating and as horrific as it was, it's not indicative of our transportation system as a whole.
and now we're learning of this disabled man who was pushed onto the tracks. What are people in Chicago saying now that we unfortunately have two of these incidents in just a matter of days?
Well, it is uncomfortable, and as pathetic as it is to say, Blake, this happens in big cities. We've seen it in New York. There was the spate of people getting pushed onto train tracks. It happens in Chicago. It happens elsewhere. Transit crime in Chicago is actually down. Shootings and murders in Chicago are down significantly. In fact, we are on track with 1 month left to go in the year in Chicago, murder-wise, to have the lowest level of murders in more than a decade. Yeah. Every incident can be alarming, can be horrific, and can be a sign of problems with how the system works. But one incident doesn't make a trend. That's what Mayor Brandon Johnson was trying to say. But you're right. If you ride the CTA every day, that's not a message people are happy to hear.
I can only imagine. Are they making any changes there on the train system?
The governor, J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat, has said he is open to changes in the Safety Act, the controversial Safety Act. But the reality is in other counties outside of Chicago, we have seen Republican prosecutors lock up more people while awaiting trial than happens here in Chicago. But we have a new top prosecutor in Chicago, and she is actually being a lot more aggressive than the previous progressive prosecutor.
Ben Bradley with our Next Star station, WGN there in the Windy City tonight. Ben, thank you so much. Before we head to break here, let's take a live look just down the road. The National Christmas Tree lighting. President Trump and the First Lady, Melania Trump, set to be there any moment now. It is a spectacular sight and a beautiful sight. You can hear some of it in the background there. They're set to light the tree. The First Lady and the President are. This is a tradition that dates all the way back to 1923. And when the President and First Lady get there on what is a beautiful night and a full moon, at least in these parts, we'll show you those scenes live. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on The Hill. Health insurance premiums for millions of Americans set to rise in weeks.
I'm terrified that we won't be able to keep up with our mortgage. At the same time, going without health insurance is not an option.
435 members in the House, only one of them who's still a practicing doctor. So what are they going to do? They trying to fix this? That's on the other side. And almost 5 years later, an arrest in the D.C. pipe bomb case. What led to the big break? And what took it so long for the FBI to find out when we return? All right, nearly 6:30 here on the East Coast, and would you look at what we got going on in our nation's capital tonight? Live look just down the road from us, the National Christmas Tree Lighting Ceremony. Set to take place, well, it's taking place right now, but the First Lady and the President will be there any moment. The Christmas tree there, they've been lighting this thing for decades. It goes all the way back to 1923. You see the full moon there, top right? It is a gorgeous night here in our nation's capital. Little chilly, but it's gorgeous. We expect the President and the First Lady right there any moment now. You'll watch it with us when it happens. Meantime, after almost 5 years, the FBI has made an arrest in the D.C. pipe bomb case from 2021. The charges date back to the eve of January 6th, 2021, when pipe bombs were planted near both the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee headquarters. The bombs thankfully never went off, but investigators say they were capable of exploding. 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. from Woodbridge, Virginia, now arrested and charged with planting those bombs. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, touting the Justice Department's ability to crack a case that had long gone cold.
Let me be clear. There was no new tip. There was no new witness. Just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work.
Pam Bondi from earlier today, and a live look. Frank, let's show him right here. A live look right now. The President of the United States, the First Lady, Melania Trump, as well.
Christmas. So is everybody ready to light the beautiful Christmas tree? Are you ready? So the First Lady is going to do the honors, and we're going to do a countdown. We'll go from 5 to 0, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Melania. And it's a beautiful job they did on creating that tree. It's a beauty. And let me also recognize Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha, as well as Secretaries Scott Bessent, Pete Hegseth, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Secretaries Doug Burgum and Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., Administrator Kelly Loeffler, and their wonderful families are doing a fantastic job. And I see out in the audience the great one, Wayne Gretzky and Janet. Thank you very much, Wayne, for being here. He's used to this kind of weather. Let's also express our gratitude to the great people of the National Park Service. They're incredible, the job they've done, as well as the unbelievable performers here tonight. You're going to see some incredible performers, and we have in the audience the Beach Boys. They're great. During this holy season, Christians everywhere rejoice at the miracle in Bethlehem more than 2,000 years ago, when the Son of God, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, came down from heaven to be with us. You're right. Full of grace and truth, he brought the gift of God's love into the world and the promise of salvation for every person and every nation. And we just settled another war today. You saw that with Rwanda and the Congo. It's been going on for 34 years. Millions of people killed. Could be 20 million. They don't know what the number is, and we just settled it today. That was a big one. We're very happy to announce it on this important day. Tonight, this beautiful evergreen tree glows bright on the dark and cold winter night and reminds us of the words of Gospel of John, "In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind." Beautiful words. With the birth of Jesus, human history turned from night to day. His word and his example call us to love one another, to serve one another, and to honor the sacred truth that every child is specially made in the image of God. For 250 years, think of it, our country is 250 years. This is a big year. I'm so happy that our presidency was delayed. Otherwise, I'd be sitting home watching television, not being invited. I would be extremely upset. And remember, we have not only the 250 years, but this is a big one. We have the World Cup, and we have the Olympics coming up, all within this 4-year period. See, if they didn't rig the election, I would have been sitting, can you imagine? I wouldn't have any of them, and I probably wouldn't have been invited. I would have been very upset by that. But America has stood tall in part because millions of our citizens have heeded that call, and the faith and service of Christians have been essential parts of America's strength from the very, very beginning. Incredible. We love the Christians. We love all religions. And by the way, religion is coming back to the USA. You see that very strongly. So this Christmas season, let me say thank you to everyone who serves the needy and lifts up the communities inspired by faith. Thank you to the police, law enforcement officers, first responders, ICE, and Border Patrol agents who risk their lives every day to defend the innocent, protect the good, and keep the evil and danger at bay. And thank you to the men and women of the United States military, including the brave heroes of our National Guard here in Washington, D.C., where we've set a record for lack of crime in 28 years. So I just want to say we have a great place, and I want to pay my highest respects to those two great guardsmen. You know who I'm talking about. They paid, in one case, the ultimate, and the other. Andrew is getting better. Sarah, unfortunately, is watching from a high, watching from heaven. Her parents are so incredible, and Andrew is hopefully getting better. He got hit hard defending us, and I just want to pay my respects to them, two incredible people, unbelievable people. I spoke with the parents and met the parents today, the parents of Andrew, and they have spirit, and they love our country so much you wouldn't believe. But as a nation, we have much to be grateful for. On this holiday season, our Border is secure. Our spirit is restored. Most secure border we've ever had in the history of our country. 7 months, and nobody has come in illegally into our country. Nobody, not one. Our economy is thriving. Inflation has stopped. Our nation is strong. And America is back, bigger and better, stronger, better than ever before. Think of it. And we're making peace all over the world. We're settling wars at levels that nobody's ever seen before. 8 of them. We're looking for one more. That's Russia, Ukraine, if that's possible. And I think we'll get there eventually. Last week, 8,000 soldiers killed last month. They had 27,000 soldiers needlessly killed. We got to get that stopped. We're working very hard on it. Just over 1 year ago, our country was in very, very serious trouble. The King of Saudi Arabia said to me very strongly, sir, 1 year ago, your country was dead. Now you have the strongest and hottest country anywhere in the world. Can you imagine? We did this in 10 months. What a difference, and it's true. Everybody feels that, and all leaders feel that. So as we prepare to celebrate the miracle of Christmas, we thank God for his many blessings, and together we rejoice at the true source of greatness, happiness, and strength. The good news is that glorious nights 2,000 years ago, think of it, 2,000 years ago, it was indeed a glorious night. So I want to thank everybody here. I want to pay my deepest respect and love to all of our great citizens, like 350 million people. We love them all. Whether you like them or not, we love them all. We want to take care of everybody. We have to take care of everybody in our country. I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and have a good time. And you're going to see some great entertainment. Thank you very much, everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
The President of the United States, the First Lady, live from Washington, National Christmas Tree Lighting Ceremony. If you know sort of where the Washington Monument, the south side of the White House is, that's basically where this is taking place, known as the Ellipsis. Happens every year, the two doing the ceremonies over the last 10 minutes or so. The other big story in this town today, essentially a cold case over the last 4 years as pipe bombs had been planted on January 6th, 2021, at both the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, the Republican National Committee as well. And today, finally, after 4 years, a break in the case. Our Kelly Meyer with what we're learning tonight. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. That 5-year-old cold case closed today. 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. arrested and charged in the 2021 D.C. pipe bomb case, laying pipe bombs outside of the RNC and DNC headquarters here in Washington, D.C. on January 5th. Here's the video of the FBI entering Cole's Woodbridge, Virginia home earlier today. That's where he lives with his mother and other family members. He works as a bail bondsman in Northern Virginia, and he was charged with transporting an explosive device and attempted malicious destruction by means of explosive materials. The FBI saying they cracked this case without new tips. FBI Director Kash Patel saying today they didn't need new evidence, just new leaders.
What we did, an investigation spearheaded by the deputy director and the ADIC of our Washington field office, brought in a new team of investigators and experts, re-examined every piece of evidence, sifted through all the data, something that the prior administration refused.
Their case appears to hinge on several key pieces of evidence. During the investigation, a height analysis from surveillance footage found the suspect's height was a near match. Authorities analyzed cell phone tower data that put Cole in the area around the time that the bombs were planted, and officials scrutinized a license plate reader that caught Cole's license plate less than 1/2 mile from the location where the bombs were left. Cole also was found to have purchased multiple components from several retailers, including Home Depot, that were consistent with the manufacturing of explosive devices. Authorities say those purchases were made prior to January 5th, 2021. Now, search warrants are being executed, and there could be more charges to come, Blake. Cole is expected to appear in court tomorrow here in Washington, D.C., Blake.
Detective work at its finest. Kelly Meyer, live tonight on the North Lawn, where the president will arrive probably in the next minute or so. Kelly, thank you. Still to come here on the other side. Speaking of the president and travel, why is he headed to Pennsylvania next week? Might it be too little too late? And the California governor, Gavin Newsom, calls out his own party. Do you know what culturally normal means? When we return.
I want to work with Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike, on a plan that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, and pro-American.
Got to go back to 2017 there. President Trump, Springfield, Missouri, laying out his economic agenda. But did you catch the date? Way back when, first year of the administration, the president was trying to shore up support for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act legislation that would pass a few months later. Now in his second administration, the president is hitting the road to talk about the economy, going to Pennsylvania next week to talk about the one big beautiful bill. But is it too little too late? Full panel here with me now. Julia Manchester, White House reporter for The Hill. Naveen Nayak is a Democratic strategist, and T.W. Rigi, former communications aide to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Gentlemen, hello. Julia, hello. Is he going on offense or defense here?
I think he's going on defense very clearly. I mean, this is something that's clearly irritated President Trump. He constantly brings this up as a Democratic hoax, calling it a con, a scam, etc. But this is an issue that Democrats have taken from Republicans and run successfully on, not just from one particular wing of the party, but you see moderate Democrats, centrist Democrats, progressive Democrats running on this issue. And it's clearly a risk for Republicans at this point. In terms of whether it's, why he's doing it this late in the game, I think a lot of us who've been paying attention to this, covering the White House, I think a lot of times second-term presidents do like to focus a lot on foreign policy, and he has done quite a bit of foreign travel, but his domestic travel has been very low, particularly when his approval rating on the economy has continued to slide.
So let me take you back to 2010. Barack Obama, the Affordable Care Act, TW and Naveen, he was out on the road before the thing was signed into law and out on the road a whole lot after it. Let me take you to 2017, President Trump, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. He was out on the road before it, and go back to Trump real quick. He was out on the road before it, and then he was out on the road after it as well. And why am I showing you J.D. Vance? Because after the bill, the one big beautiful bill signed, look who was out there. J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance. What's that all about?
Well, a few things.
Mistake?
I absolutely think in light of the election results, we should have been doing more of it. And I think the president knows that. That's why he's going on the road. He said after the November elections, in that closer meeting on Capitol Hill, that there was polling numbers that said we needed to talk more about the economy. He knows this is a signature bill regarding the economy. We know no tax on tip, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Those are still very popular. It's hard also when we're protecting the American people from the largest tax increase in history to call it a tax cut. But essentially it was. So yes, the president's going to be talking more about the economy. And Julia, you're totally right. The second-term presidents are out for legacy. He's been doing a ton with immigration, with tariffs, with global conflicts and ending them and maybe starting them. There's a lot on his plate. He's running 1,000,000 miles a minute. Now it's time to focus. We have a year to go.
The White House, people around Donald Trump will always tell you, as you guys know this, but for our audience, he's his best salesman. So if he gets out on the road and he's the best salesman of this, do you think he can start to shift momentum on it?
Not anymore. As a side note, I was stunned to see that footage of Trump from 2017. That is a different man. He doesn't have that in him right now at all when you see him at the White House every day. It's not that kind of energy or vigor. And I think the thing that has passed him and makes this too late from my point of view, he is way underwater on the economy. That is the biggest difference between Trump first term, Trump second term. Even if people disliked him, the left definitely didn't like him in the first term, but the rest of the country gave him good grades on the economy. He is at like single digits, low 20s with independence on the economy. He is way underwater in the economy. He's not a credible salesman anymore. He spends half his time saying affordability is not an issue. It's a scam. So I actually think there's a reason he didn't go to Tennessee. He is really unpopular, even in red places, and I think...
Oh, I don't know that he's really unpopular.
He's not popular enough to help. is the point. Do you not think they would have sent, the RNC would have sent him to Tennessee like that if he wanted to do it and if he was going to be helpful? We should see that as a big sign that he's not.
Yeah, I'm not so certain Mike Johnson is more popular than and more good for the turnout than Donald Trump. But look, it's always going to be the economy, stupid. There's a year to go. The president has done a ton of work on tariffs. Right. He's going to pass a lot of regulations. It's a long way to go. If people fill in their pocketbooks, he'll be better off. The Republicans will be better off.
Meantime, let's go out west and someone who wants to be president, as we all know. Gavin Newsom, the governor there. He had this message for his fellow Democrats.
I think there's a broader narrative that we have to address. That is, we have to be more culturally normal. We have to be a little less judgmental.
Do you know what culturally normal means?
I don't know what he's talking about there.
Do you know?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I think the one that he's been pushing back with is like transgender issues regarding sports. He's talking about the woke pushback against what we see as normal actions of males or cultural issues and going on different podcasts, bro podcasts, which the left has said is sexist or whatever. It's being a normal person again. Okay. He's leading the charge of that. I think it's wise.
This is your side of the aisle.
Yeah, like, I think there are two different things here. One is, I think the place where he's talking about language. I think that is a place where the left has sort of missed the American people. When we start making up words that no one in the country understands, I think that feels really odd. I think that's a really big difference than demonizing a whole set of people who are dealing with a real issue. And that's where I do think, we said this, that was the reaction to gay people 50 years ago. And I think most people now would say demonizing gay people feels pretty cruel. And I think we're going to look at trans people in the same way. And so I don't think demonizing the people is at all. I hope that's not what he's talking about, because that will feel out of touch.
Let me work Julia in here, because Halle Berry said this about the governor just yesterday.
Back in my great state of California, my very own governor, Gavin Newsom, has vetoed our menopause bill, not 1 but 2 years in a row. But that's okay, because he's not going to be governor forever. And with the way he's overlooked women, half the population, by devaluing us in midlife, he probably should not be our next president either.
Went after him there. Is she on to something there?
I think it's certainly shocking to see a Hollywood liberal go after a very liberal governor of California who's very popular within his party. In terms of whether she's on to something, do I think, this is obviously a very important issue in California, across the country, menopause, addressing it. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation. I think this would have been probably politically good for Gavin Newsom to sign. But I mean, I don't see this going any further. I mean, I think this is probably, when it comes to the legislation, what she's talking about, this is very state-centric. But, I mean, look, so much could come out and happen before 2028.
You've got a pulse of the Democratic Party. When is he announced?
Has he not? I don't understand that the announcements matter anymore.
We'll leave it there. Julia, Naveen, TW, thank you. Still to come. Other side. Speaking of Democrats, the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro, did you hear what he is saying now about Kamala Harris? Oof, not holding back. Other side. If you're just getting home, trying to catch up on today's top stories, some Hill headlines, what's making news around this town. The governor there, Josh Shapiro, how about this? Says Kamala Harris told blatant lies about her book. He's the governor in Pennsylvania, reacting to what the vice president wrote about him in 107 days. The governor, though, quickly walked it back, saying he couldn't have used the crude language, shouldn't have, rather, but that the governor is trying to sell books, period. Oof. Now, how about this? Something to celebrate. Average U.S. gas price drops below $3, but not in all states. AAA reporting the drop in national gas prices with the low that hasn't been seen since May in 2021. Lowest state, Oklahoma. Congrats to the folks out there. And finally, Cloud Dancer. Pantone names Color of the Year for 2026. The paint company says that is your color of the year. Come here. Come here. That's the color of the year. Look at the graphics. It's the same, right? Kudos to the graphics department. How about that? They basically nailed the color of the year. Give the folks a raise. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. You can scan the QR code on your screen for our morning newsletter, by the way. All right, Elizabeth Vargas reports. Coming up next, the retired FBI agent Jim Fitzgerald on the big story of the FBI arrest. I'm Blake Burman. We'll see you tomorrow.